Welcome in the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. It's a Friday, so we figured let's have a fun topic and talk a little bit about Avalanche Rivalries. We got JMike, we got Rudo coming to you live. It's gonna be a fun show, and I wanna preface this that we will get into the Wings rivalry eventually. We'll talk about it, don't worry, but I don't want to start there because. Let's face it, that rivalry is just a cheat code. It's arguably the best rivalry in the history of sports in North America. So, yeah, we'll get into it. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk more modern rivalries of the Avs. JMike, you've, like many of us, been a fan of the entire existence of the Avs. And while none of them compare to the Wings, do any of the modern ones even count as real rivalries? Let's start there.
I think you can count Dallas as a rival, just given the consistency. I don't think that's always a great argument. They've played a bunch, therefore they're rivals. But I think when you factor in the intensity of the moments, the fact that a lot of the times they played each other have been years where one or at least one, if not both of the teams had legitimate like Stanley Cup aspirations. I think I'd put Dallas in there, but I mean, it's a significant tier below what Colorado and Detroit was. And just being realistic, I'm not sure there's ever going to be a rivalry that feels quite as intense as that one did.
Yeah, I doubt it. I think you can count Dallas in part because of in the 1.0 era, the Avs did at least beat them in the playoffs a couple of times. So I do think that is an important factor, but also realistically, the winner of the Avs-Dallas series, the past handful of times they played, is a conference finalist guaranteed, whether that's literally they're playing in the second round or the winner of that series goes on to play in the conference finals. Unfortunately, it's broken Dallas's way a bit too often, but you could argue that every time they play in the playoffs, it's two of the best three teams in the West playing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too far into left field here, like go like too far into the other sport comparisons, but growing up, like it kind of feels like the Patriots and Colts, you know, they'd play every single year. They weren't in the same division or anything like that, but you knew that whoever got out of that game, not necessarily every year, but far more times than not, was going to go on to, at bare minimum, the AFC title game or the Super Bowl. Some of those were AFC title games, but yeah, it feels like that. Or when Manning came here and you saw the Broncos Patriots, like to me, when I think about that relationship between those two teams, I just think of the big time matchups. Like the regular season games, not so much. And I think that's maybe part of the difference between like the modern rivals and some of the rivalries of old is I'm not sure the bad blood is going 365 days a year. Maybe with Mikko over there now, that kind of changes and we see it intensify a little bit. But at least with the playoffs, like Dallas is kind of the team that I most associate with Colorado, and obviously losing to them a couple of times factors into that as well. You know, makes you not have a lot of love lost for the folks out there in Dallas. Ooh, there we go.
Love it when my Chrome crashes. Always good.
Just randomly keep you on your toes, man.
I guess. Anyway, yeah, did you want to finish what you were saying, or did you finish it while I was?
No, I finished it. Basically, just like when I think of Colorado and Dallas, I think of big time playoff matchups. And obviously when you also factor in the most recent history and the lack of success against them, that kind of pours some fuel on our fire.
It's I think it's really hard in modern sports other than football. Football, it's a little bit easier because you play once a week, right? There's so much understanding now of how important rest is and how much keeping your body in shape is. And seasons for hockey and basketball and baseball are so long that the reality is sometimes in a regular season game, you're getting 80%. Like the players have to look after themselves in a way that they just don't in the playoffs, where you get that amped up willingness to maybe have a little bit more edge to your game, maybe cause a little bit more of a problem for the other team. So I do think rivalries, not just in hockey, but across sports, have suffered through some of that. A conversation for a different day on shortening seasons and other things like that. But certainly in hockey, what constitutes a rivalry has changed a lot, right? Like fights are way down compared to what they were 20 years ago. You're not actually throwing punches at your rivals all the time every time you play them anymore. There are other ways that you get into rivalries, whether it be, physicality can be part of it. Some dirty play can be part of it, but a guy pitches a shutout in a big game against you, or someone scores a big overtime goal. Those are the types of things that seem to spark rivalries more than just the actual, I'm physically going to attack you.
Yeah, I just think they have to kind of form organically, right? Like that's the major component in that.
For
And like
sure.
you said, with the fights and that element not being as prevalent in the game today, it does come down to more like Colorado and Dallas. You know, we've just played in a bunch of big time matchups, and kind of sucks that they haven't gone our way quite as frequently. But I mean, it definitely was an emotional thing, like being in the locker room after the Avs lost that game, and obviously it being game 7 and Landeskog's return and everything that went into it. But I felt that one just as a Colorado sports fan, as an Avs supporter. Like I remember walking around the city afterwards, go sad music playing in my head, just being like, I can't believe it really came down to this. But like, I think if it's a rival, it elicits a different type of emotional response. When you win, it feels a whole lot better. But man, when you lose, like it hurts a little bit worse when that team beats you. And I think right now that team's Dallas, but there have been, other teams over the years that have kind of had that role. Obviously, you can look at Vancouver and the whole Bertuzzi incident, which is kind of its separate ordeal. But I mean, it's 20 something years later, and I still kind of hate them for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect segue into our first real segment here. Keep it short, but we're going to do a 3-round draft of Avs rivalries, except you can't choose Detroit, because if you choose Detroit, you just win. So Detroit is off the table. But behind Detroit, who are the Avs' biggest rivals? That's the topic of the draft. We have 6 picks in total. JMike, I think you have pick number 1 here.
I think I got to go Dallas after rambling about it for 15 minutes. That'd be a little odd of me to go a different direction. So I'll take the Stars.
I think it's the right answer, too. I certainly, for the modern Avs, there are other teams they've lost to. There are other frustrating teams that we'll get into. But even with the lack of success, the team that consistently makes me the most mad is the Dallas Stars. So in that regard, I do think it's a rivalry. I do think you get into an interesting conversation too, because to be a good rivalry, like a couple things need to be true. One, both teams need to be good. If one team is just beating on the other one in the sense of like, oh, okay, if the Dallas has swept us in all those series, we'd be like, that's not a rivalry. They're just better than us. But you've lost multiple game 7s to them. You've had multiple leads that you've blown to them. We're not a far cry from the Avs winning 2 of those 3 series. Unfortunately, didn't go that way, but that's the type of stuff that's required. Yes, there has to be some bad blood too. Jamie Benn does a great job of that. The Stars have a bunch of instigators. I guess they traded March Mint this offseason, but he was another one that would get into that. There's plenty of that side of it. And then there's also plenty of skill on both sides. I think a big part of something that gets overlooked in rivalries is there has to be a level of respect between both teams. You look at like the wings, and it's like Sakic and Yzerman at the top of those lists. But Ottinger right now for the Stars is one of those guys where like, yeah, the dude's just good. Like, what are you going to do about it? I do think that is necessary in a rivalry, and the Stars have pretty much all of the pieces to that. The Avs just need to win a series against them.
Yeah, it would help to have some recent success. I mean, the trash talking is getting a little one-sided, and it gets to a point where it's just like, well, yeah, we can't really say a whole lot more other than, I guess, you start bringing up the Stanley Cup totals, then you start diving into like real petty territory. But again, yeah. I think that just speaks to why this is a rivalry. You can't just let it go. It's like, no, I got to get one more lick in myself.
gotta be able to win it. All right, I think Stars are the right pick at number 1. At second pick, I think I have 3 or 4 legitimate options here that I could go with, and I don't love any of them, to be honest, but the one I'm going to take, I think, is St. Louis. And I know a lot of people...
That's fair.
It's hard because it's not... It lacks some of the things that the Stars lack. Like, in the Avs history, they're 3-0 against St. Louis in the playoffs, and only one of those series was even kind of close, but there's also a lot, especially with the most recent series, there's a lot of other interactions that are going on there with the whole Kadri situation and the racism and hate he got in St. Louis during that series, and then the awesome moments that they had. But also the Blues have players like Jordan Binnington who are just genuinely easy to hate across the league. That's not just an Avalanche specific thing. And that it's why I put them a little bit higher than some other. I know a lot of people probably have Minnesota here. But I think the Blues series was closer to the Blues are closer to a proper rival than Minnesota ever was. Going back to what I said about the Stars, the Avs and Minnesota, outside of maybe 13-14, have never really both been good at the same time, at least good enough. The Minnesota has found itself stuck in the Calgary zone through most of the 2010s. The Avs, or at least the first half of the 2010s, the Avs were not very good. And then as the Avs were on the upswing, Minnesota kind of floundered. So the Blues, on the other hand, especially with the modern stuff, were coming off of a cup win as the Avs were on their ascent and started dominating them in the few playoff series that they have had. So that's why I lean Blues ahead of them for round 1.
I'm with you. I think especially when you factor in just that St. Louis was a really good team at the time. Like, the history does swing more in Colorado's favor than the Dallas matchup, but
it does.
Going into that series, it to me really felt like, all right, if they get through this one, like I feel pretty good about the chances of going on a serious run, potentially a title run here, and all the other stuff in with Kadri, like, and it's kind of like the Steve Morse stuff. Like, sometimes it only takes one incident to really create a lot of animosity, and I don't think that's one that'll be soon forgotten on the Avs side of things.
True. All right. Let's do a normal draft. I don't want to make another pick, so I'm going to put Justin on the spot to take the first round, the first pick of round 2 as well.
It kind of goes against some of what you just said, but I am going to go Minnesota. I do think you're spot on. Like, I don't think they've ever truly been on the same tier at the same time as far as like contender status goes, but they did, pull off the reverse sweep in 2003 to end Patrick Waugh's career.
Yeah.
And I think in that 14 run, if the Avs had gotten out of that series, that team had a pretty decent chance of making some legitimate noise as well. So I'm going to go Minnesota. I also think that, like, as a DU hockey fan and somebody who's into the college sports side of things, the whole Minnesota-Colorado dynamic just as a state, like, I love mocking, the hockey state, huh? Like, when we're winning all the titles at every level, factor that in a little bit. But I'm going to go Minnesota.
I like the pick. We'll talk about why in just a minute here, but we do need to take our first break of the show. So let's make sure we're paying our bills so we can afford our cup holders that Minnesota can't have. Go get yourself a quality floor. You need a good floor if you want to put your Stanley Cup on it. And that's where Empire Today comes into play. Just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a floor advantage too. Whether it's hardwood, tile, carpet, they've got you covered over at Empire Today. They are the flooring experts. They've dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. They only carry the best products. And the coolest part is you can get a free in-home estimate today. They'll come out to your house. They'll bring flooring swatches. You can see what it looks like in your house with your furniture. You'll know you're getting what you want. And then you can get $350 off those new floors at empiretoday.com/DNVR. You heard that right. $350 off when you use code DNVR. Of course, restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/DNVR for full details. And of course, you can always call 1-800-588-2300 Empire. Once you've got your floors all set up, I spend too much time in my house. I admit it. But sometimes you got to get out. Sometimes you got to get a little bit of exercise. So that's where Volo comes in. Volo is Denver's most popular adult social sports league. You can play pickup games, events, tournaments, and more. All of it is a great way to get exercise, meet new people, and do a bunch of other stuff. I'm signed up for a kickball league in September with some of my friends, so it's always a fun way to get in. You can join Volo to play all sorts of sports, though. Soccer ball, pickleball, kickball, basketball, cornhole, tons of other stuff. In Denver, they have sports leagues all over the city. Lodo, Rhino, Highland, City Park, Cherry Creek, South Broadway. A lot more than that, too. And the cool part is if you're in any significantly populated area, they probably have a Volo chapter. So it's not just here in Denver. It's all across the country. But if you are here, when you sign up, you can get $10 off with code DNVR10. You can sign up as a free agent, a small group, or an entire team at all ability levels for all sports. So go check them out. Go get with Volo Sports and use that DNVR10 code to get $10 off any Volo Denver league. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. So there's a couple things about Minnesota. One thing that I think hurts the rivalry, yes, the Minnesota Wild did essentially end Patrick Roy's career, but then it got weird because Andrew Brunette, the guy who scored the goal in overtime, went on to play for the Avs later. So it kind of hurt the hate there. 13-14 had the makings of everything you wanted, though. The playoff series was a great series. The Avs probably should have won it. They didn't. You had an easy public enemy number one in Matt Cook, who blew up Tyson Berry's knee with that horrible hit and was already a guy that people didn't love around the league. All of that was set up well, and I do think there was a certain level of rivalry there. It's just, again, they never really saw each other again in meaningful games after that. You're leaning on games like opening nights where Zach Parise scored a hat trick to come back and beat the Avs, which do matter. I don't want to say they don't matter, but it didn't quite hit the highs of a rivalry because of the lack of importance in games that they were playing. But I think they deserve more credit than I'm giving them for this rivalry, because this was an era that you could argue is still going on now, but the NHL has really, really tried to force rivalries in the league over the past decade or so, and it has almost exclusively failed. Like, almost none of the rivalries they've pushed have actually turned into anything. And the Minnesota Avs thing had that organic rivalry to it that you were talking about, JMike. So I do think they deserve some credit there.
They're just a team I dislike. I don't know. It might have to do with their fans. When they come into Ball Arena, they're one of the teams that travel well because there's just a lot of folks from the region who are transplants in Colorado, my family included. My grandma grew up in Minnesota, so I don't know. Maybe it's one of those, I just have some of them in my life, and so like the noise is a little bit louder for me. But I definitely would put them in the top couple here in terms of just teams that you've organically kind of formed some beef with, like throughout the history. That maybe is not on the level of the Red Wings. Nothing is, but there's just something about them that gets under my skin.
Yeah, I would agree. They're hateable for sure, which is where I'm going with my second round pick as well. And I waffled. I was gonna go with Vancouver because I do think they deserve to be somewhere on this, but instead I'm taking Vegas here. Is the rivalry with the Avs that big? No. I don't think that it is. Obviously, they had the one collapse in the playoffs where the Avs led the series 2-0 and then lost 4 straight, and that sucks. But the Golden Knights are, I guess it's less the past year or two, but up until they won that cup, they were the villain of the NHL. They were so easy to hate for their existence. Like, everyone was hyped about them when they came in, and they immediately went on that run. And, some of this is obviously perception more than it is the truth, but you watched the organization create a fan base that hadn't been through the wars like most hockey fan bases, I feel like, have. And like, I say this as an Avs fan, where they came here and they won in their first year, which is ridiculous. But, I also lived through 2008 to 2017. So their fan base immediately became what felt like a very entitled fan base. It felt like they deserved everything, felt like they deserved to win all the time. They played, in my opinion, somewhat dirty hockey at the time. And also, certainly their front office played dirty, as they were at the forefront of just essentially ignoring the salary cap and doing whatever they possibly could to find loopholes to get through it and find that way. So the organization, maybe if not an Avs rival, still top 5 hateable in the NHL for sure.
I get it. There are a lot of college football teams that fit this category where it's like, maybe they're not truly rivals, but man, are they easy to hate. Just everything about them, their general demeanor, their entitlement. And as you mentioned, it's a bit rich for us to say it as Avs fans, given that, the Avs kind of came in and took the world by storm. But I think the social media element factors into it for sure. Like, you get to be so loud and out there, and everybody has to sit there and listen to it. And we're all like, all right, man, you've been here 30 seconds. Like, let's know your role a little bit. But I don't know if I would put them on par with Vancouver, who I will take with the next pick. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I do just feel like out of all of the teams that have kind of been shoehorned as rivals, like from the NFL or from the NHL, the Golden Knights are up there. Like, I don't know. There's an organic annoyingness to them that is very easy to hate.
I love that you brought up the social media aspect, because I do think that is a big part of it with them. And look, when you're on top, I get it. Talk your smack. You can back it up. But I say the same thing to everyone. And this goes beyond hockey. When I'm playing Counter-Strike online and people are talking smack, I say the same thing. Keep the same energy, man. It's easy to talk smack when you're up. When you miss the playoffs and everyone's dunking on you, and instead of even tweeting out a GG, your Twitter account goes silent because you guys choked. Where you at? Where'd you go?
I'll see you. Anyways, let's keep it going.
That's all I'm saying. Keep the same energy. You gotta, if you want to be that guy, you got to be that guy even when you lose. It's too easy to just do it when you win and then disappear. That's all I'm saying.
There is nothing worse than the folks that are loud and proud, banging their chests. Oh, I'm so bad. Everybody's a hater. You all wish that you were me. And then when a little bit of adversity strikes, or when reality sets in, now all of a sudden, you get to play the victim card. No, everybody's so mean. Why does everybody hate us? It's like, well, didn't you want that? You wanted all that smoke about 30 seconds ago. Now, exactly. The reality sits in, and that's very much Vegas. Like, ever since they've kind of come back to earth, now their fans are even more annoying. The social media element is a big factor in modern rivalries, I feel like.
Fully agree on that front. It's no longer newspaper headlines, but tweets that are pushing things.
The funny thing is that's kind of a perfect transition for me taking Vancouver.
Yeah.
Because in 2003, JMike was in the 3rd grade, so very young, but read the sports section every single day. I actually cut out the clipping of what had happened in that Vancouver Avs game the night before. My parents let me stay up to watch it. My 3rd grade teacher, Miss Weicker was her name, she was an angel, had me explain to the entire class what had happened in the Avalanche game the night before and why it was so significant. So that was kind of the beginning of my sports podcasting career, was me laying out to a bunch of fellow third graders why Todd Bertuzzi was a punk ass bitch, and we needed to, get him wrong at some point in one of those upcoming matchups.
That's so freaking sick.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. Look, the Bertuzzi thing is arguably one of the worst moments in the history of the NHL. Like, it's very bad for any number of reasons. And the thing is, not to take away from that, like, that alone is enough to spark a rivalry. But there was like legitimate frustrations between those teams just beyond Todd Bertuzzi. For years and years and years, Roberto Luongo had to play his best games against the Avalanche. I remember half a dozen games going to the Pepsi Center against the Canucks and being like, well, the Avs are about to lose this game 1-0 or something, because that's just how it goes against Vancouver. But yeah, I don't even know how you quantify the Bertuzzi stuff. It's crazy that it happened. It's crazy that he got to continue playing in the NHL after it happened. And even when you like, people will still get into arguments with you about it if they were like Canuck fans and stuff. And I just don't understand like what there is to say. Like, Moore had
to fight for it 9 different times.
Yeah, he already did in that game. Like, he already answered the bell, and they were like, "Oh, it's not enough." Are you kidding me?
Like, I'm somebody who kind of appreciates the whole element of an eye for an eye, the code, if you will, the players policing themselves and preventing some of the gnarliness in the open ice that back then, especially before we were so aware of head trauma, like there would have been so much more head hunting in the open ice. I believe that. Not everybody does, but like, it went so far beyond the bounds of what should be acceptable. I mean, it's just like there are lines you can't cross, and you see it in football. Like, somebody goes dirty, and then Aqib Talib's going to try and fight you for the rest of the game. And admittedly, I kind of love it. Like, I love that energy, guys sticking up for their teammates, but it had been different if Aqib Talib ran over to the other sideline, used his helmet as a weapon, and like hit Crabtree with it or something like that. Like, it went so far beyond guys pushing and shoving, talking shit. Even had it been a big open ice hit, like, to do what he did in that situation, it's attempted murder in the middle of a sports game.
Like, even if he was in front of him and sucker punched him in the front of the face, like, and it would have been like, all right, it's still fucked up, but
but less coward shit.
Yeah, like the UFC, when you put two dudes in an octagon who are actively trying to kill each other, and if you punch someone in the back of the head, they're like, nah, you don't do that. You're not allowed to do that. To do something like that is just so beyond not just the scope of like the rule book, but the scope of like being a decent human being.
Yeah, just like a functional society. Like, even if you're in the most intense of belief systems when it comes to violence and, F around and find out and all that, it was so far over the line. And that's what's crazy to me. Like you said, that there are actually fans who will try and justify it the other way. Like, oh, it was a terrible thing that happened, but, Steve Moore, and it's an asinine.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that piss me off about it. His 1-year suspension was served during a lockout, so he like didn't even really miss any games. And it's like, everything about it, I hate it. Maybe we should have done most hateable instead of biggest rivalry. I say that because I feel like this is the end of the list. I don't know that the Avs have a great 6th team that you could really list as a rival. I'm tempted to take the state of Florida just because the Avs are 2-0 against them in Cup finals, but I'm going to go even further off the beaten path here, because it'll also segue us a little bit into our next segment. The 6th biggest rivalry in Avalanche history is Nathan MacKinnon versus Connor Garland. I will tell you why, but first we do have to take our second break of the show. So Let's pay some bills while you can sit on my weird choice. We are brought to you by the fantastic folks over at ENT Credit Union. You can jump on whether you're part of Broncos country or the Avs, Nuggets, whoever it might be. They are the official bank of the Denver Broncos, though. So, it's a Broncos city. I get it. As much as we are Avs people, I understand. This thing is loaded with all kinds of perks that will get any fan fired up. Things like no surprise fees, no minimum balance requirements, and the money in your Broncos checking account even earns dividends. So it's already a great checking account, but then you layer on all of the fan perks. 10% off food and gear on game days at Empower Field, a bunch of access to Broncos branded stuff, as well as a chance to win tickets to Broncos home games simply by paying with your Broncos checking debit card. Every 10 swipes enters you for another chance to win. So if you're ready to bank like a Bronco, go to ent.com/DNVR. That's ent.com/DNVR and sign up for Broncos checking today. ENT Credit Union is insured by the NCUA. Membership required. APY annual percentage yield account requires associated ENT Broncos debit card. Once you've entered yourself in to win some Broncos tickets, make sure if you don't win, you can still get to the game with Game Time. Jump in with Game Time. You can get Avs tickets too there. You can also get tickets to the concert or the theaters. They've got it all covered when it comes to Game Time, not just sports. They have killer last-minute deals. If you wait for last-second tickets, you can also use their Game Time Picks feature to find the best tickets for the best price based on your search parameters. And whatever tickets you can get $20 off when you sign up with a new account and use code DNVR. So jump in with Game Time. Join over 15 million people that use Game Time to get their tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can download the Game Time app today. Again, use that DNVR code with a new account to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. DNVR for the $20 off. Get the app. Last minute tickets. Lowest price. Guaranteed with Game Time. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. And I see chat throwing some names out there. I considered having Arizona, Utah as the team, but I don't think there's actually really any bad blood there other than when Garland was there with Nathan MacKinnon. And I think in the modern era of sports, it has become a lot less team oriented when you look at rivalries like this, because it's a lot easier to compare player A with player B. And you can put them head to head. Yes, I'm putting Garland in here just because I think it's hilarious that Nathan MacKinnon threw a helmet at him and they clearly hate each other. But you can compare Nathan MacKinnon to Sidney Crosby. They're both from Cole Harbour. And, Crosby obviously has the better career, but he also has, half a decade more of hockey played than Nathan MacKinnon does. So you look at guys like that way competing. You look at some of the dudes like a Matthew Tkachuk or a Brad Marchand. They're easy to hate in the NHL and can stir rivalries in a way that maybe the whole team doesn't get behind it, but when they get under someone's skin, it creates a rivalry. And it's probably more so in other sports, maybe not football, but certainly in basketball, it's such a superstar league. You see Jokic gets beef with someone and then his brothers get involved and you get this whole turf war kind of thing going on. In baseball, the sport is so individualistic anyway. Anytime any pitcher throws at anybody, you can kind of see beef between two guys. But hockey has it too. And I don't know how much of this is compared to their Wings or Stars, where you can see there's clearly some bad blood on the ice between guys. Like when you look at the Makar Hughes debate, I don't think those two actually feel like rivals necessarily in the way that they hate each other. Yes, they compete against each other. I'm sure they're aware of each other, but it's much more the fandom and on social media that causes these storms of anger about, well, this player is so much better, and everyone ends up hating each other over it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an important distinction in there that there are genuine rivalries like what you were just talking about with Mac, where for whatever reason, two players just straight up don't like each other and they don't try and hide it. I love that in any sport, give me more of that. But I think there are also quote unquote rivalries that get built up through the fan base where, like you're saying, I don't think there's any actual animosity. I don't think Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid have any true animosity. I think there might be some jealousy, going one
Sure.
way in that relationship. But I think that rivalry is just a product of the fans, and really getting back to what we talked about earlier with social media and narratives, and then it becomes, our city against everyone because you don't support our guy, and like all the tribalism that gets involved in all that. But it is just funny how quickly something like that, one small moment, one little narrative that gets created by Stephen A. Smith on ESPN or whoever, and 4 years later, it's still like a point of contention online amongst
Yep.
various fan bases.
Yeah, it's funny how a little thing can end up sparking something like that. It blows into something so much bigger than what it started as.
Who are some vintage examples of this? Like, we obviously had McKinnon, but in the chat here somebody says Ronick Waugh in 1996
Yeah.
was golden. I can't really speak to that one, but I'm sure you can.
The Ronick Waugh gave the famous quote of, "I can't really hear him because there's 2 Stanley Cup rings plugging my ears."
That's right. Yeah, all-time quote.
Yeah, and
There were
Ronick
some
had
of
some
those in
decent ones
Detroit,
too.
Colorado, obviously. Like, I mean, Claude Lemieux
Yeah.
was obviously very much not popular in Detroit.
Yeah, literally had needed a police escort every time they went to Detroit. The Detroit one, which we'll just kind of transition into talking about it. Every time the Avs were in Detroit, someone would figure out what their hotel was and they'd get prank called all night. So they would not have slept at all on game days. There's all sorts of conversations like that between those two. It's funny though, and I'm sure everyone's heard this story, so I'll keep it brief. But one of my favorite stories from the Avs Wings rivalry is the Sean Avery story, where he's sitting on the bench. He starts yapping at Joe Sakic, and none of the Avs have to come over because one of the I don't know if it was Yzerman or who, leaned over to Avery, who was like a rookie at the time, and was like, "Yeah, buddy, you don't talk to Miss." Well, it was it Brett Hull. Yeah. You don't talk to Mr. Sakic. Even two teams that truly, truly hated each other knew there was a hierarchy there of how this worked.
That's one of my favorite stories, just period, from the whole Avalanche Red Wings dynamic. But I think it's also kind of what makes hockey so special, and I mean, it's a bit corny, but it's easy to romanticize that type of stuff. Like, it just shows a different level of, I think, self-awareness, but also respect amongst competitors, that even if there is genuine hatred, in those 60 minutes when you're playing like they want to murder each other, also that's Joe Sakic, and he's one of the greatest to ever do it. So, you show him a little bit of respect. I'm sure Holt could have said something to him, but and Avery was kind of a fiery dude, right? Like an enforcer type, fighting everybody. He
had a way with words. I'll put it to you that way. He knew how to piss people off. That's for sure. Thankfully, he went out east eventually, and the Avs didn't have to deal with him too much. But let me ask you, what would it take to have something that comes even close to the Avs Wings rivalry again in modern sports? Is it even possible?
I think it's possible. It would take a lot longer, I think, because maybe this is me oversimplifying it, but I mean, I think violence was just a big factor in all of it, and we don't have that in sports to the same extent today, which is probably good. But I mean, it's deep and instinctual, and I don't know, that there was just such genuine hatred between those cities, and it all kind of stems from violence. So I don't know if you could create the same level of true beef and hatred that came from that.
I am usually at the forefront of we don't need fighting in the NHL. I'm that guy who's I think it's way overblown. And even me, every once in a while, bro, I want to see a line brawl. I want to see the big fight break out. When the bench is clear in a baseball game, I am about it. I love it. And I don't want people to get seriously injured or anything, but look, at the end of the day, they are competing. They are trying to be the best out there on any given night. And that comes with some fieriness at times. Sometimes somebody crosses a line and you need to step up about it. I miss a little bit. I think the NHL, the one thing they've lost in this era of cracking down against the fighting and the physical stuff, which the NHL is still plenty physical. I would argue that to anyone who disagrees, but they've lost a little bit of that. Everyone on both teams just going, yep, we're going to do this. So let's see what happens.
I'm not sure there's anything more exciting than a fight. Like, that's just human nature. I think when you see that type of conflict, you're going to be drawn to it. It's why boxing was so big for all those years. And I think outside of the pay-per-view model essentially killing the sport, and that's a whole different ramble and tangent for a different day. Like, I think if it wasn't for that, boxing would still be one of the biggest sports in the world today. And I think it checks when you see with the growth of the UFC and everything else. Like, it's a weird thing to kind of try and come to terms with as more educated sports fans, I guess is the way to phrase it. Now we really truly know the dangers of head trauma and CTE and everything that comes with it. And that's where I'm conflicted. And that's where I support the league trying to take some of that out of the picture, because you do got to look after what's best for these guys in the long run. But also there's a part of me that's really just a dude, a sports fan sitting here like, I kind of love it when these guys beat the hell out of each other. I wish we would see it a little bit more often.
It's a hard conversation for me, right? Because, like, obviously we've seen some of the results of players that get later in their career in CTE, and it's horrible, like, truly. But also, well, first of all, the NHL needs to acknowledge that CTE is a real thing and that their sport causes it, and they need to take better care of their players after they retire or when they have injuries or stuff. We can put that plainly in focus. That needs to happen. With that being said, these players also make millions and millions of dollars, especially at the top of the league. And when you sign a contract with an NHL team, is there not, I'm not saying you have to go out there and die for the team or anything, but there is some level of, I'm signing this with the understanding that I'm putting a certain level of my health at risk to get paid a ton of money to play a kid's game.
I think you know what you're signing up for. And again, that's not to be ignorant or dismissive or unsympathetic to the physical damage and like the harsh realities that a lot of these guys go through. And 100% the league in the NFL, it's the same deal that they've got to do far better. And it's just kind of a crappy instance of legalities and people being worried about getting sued that like causes them to just do the objectively wrong thing and not do right by the players that make you all the billions in the first place. But it's one of those, when you look at it and you see the aftermath, it's hard for me to sit here with a straight face and advocate for more of it. But
yeah,
I'm also not going to be phony, because I'll admit, like, there's a part of me, like, the blood gets pumping and my heart gets pounding. You know, when you see a fight, it's exciting, and it's what was really fun about the Avs and the Red Wings. Obviously, like, a lot of horrible stuff came out of that, but there's a reason those clips still go viral every time they come up. The brawls, Waugh and Osgood, and then the full line brawls, because that was thrilling, and we just don't have that these days.
It's definitely not the same. I think there's no doubt about that. I did want to also talk about, we talked about Lemieux certainly in the Red Wings Avs rivalry, other teams, guys like Marchand, guys like Matt Tkachuk. I have a hard time picking out just poop disturbers in currently on the Avs, but also like in Avs history. I can't remember a ton of guys that were really getting under guys' skin. Fighters, sure. Scott Parker, Peter Worrell. There were a ton of Avs that could throw hands. But I don't know. Do you have anyone that comes to mind when I talk about a guy that's, a pest in Avs history or current Avs?
I feel like Ian LePerriere was kind of that guy. Like, just a little bit of a pest, kind of an instigator, would fight here and there, kind of got into it, but just the type of player who I would have really been annoyed by had he been on a divisional rival. But because he was on our team, I kind of liked him. I met him one time when I was a kid, so I kind of like had rooting interest for him because of that. But I don't know. He kind of comes to mind. I think Landeskog is a shit stir. I think he's a guy who, if you were going up against him, especially when you factor in how handsome he is, like if you were, a whatever fan in Minnesota, Dallas, whatever, you're like, oh, that pretty boy that everybody loves and talks about, but also will, kind of throw a cross check here and there and stir some stuff up. I mean, I love him. I love him to death, but I really would put him in that combo for sure.
Yeah, I think Lappy's a good choice. LOC, a decent shout from the chat. I do think he's
Cody McLeod. Yeah.
I don't know that Cody McLeod was that guy. The problem with McLeod is not his willingness. He was absolutely willing and he would throw hands. But the problem is he would annoy someone and then they'd say, let's fight. And then they'd say, okay. And McLeod would lose the fight. And that was the end of it. Like,
I appreciated his spirit, even if it was at time misguided.
Yeah, you gotta know when to say no to the fight because you're annoying them and under their skin then, instead of like, all right, you made me mad and I punched you and that's the end of it.
I think that's kind of what makes Landy awesome though too, is he's a really talented player and he's that kind of guy because he just loves the spirit of hockey. Like that's just how he was raised to play the game. It'd be smarter for him objectively to avoid some of the beef that he gets into. He's skilled enough that he doesn't need to play that way to be impactful or to be a guy that's like making, a night to night big impact for you. But he just does it because he's about that action. So I love that. But I'm with you. There aren't like a ton of guys that I can think of that I would put in the like Marchand vein or the Kachuk brothers or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think it goes that far. Maybe a little bit of a different category of a similar thing, but I might throw Kadri in there.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Less of a maybe directly getting under your skin by like giving you a spear when the ref isn't looking or anything, but he was known as Kadri Bob Ross. He would embellish a little bit at times and would get under players' skins when he gets a call that goes his way, and it would.
You saying he was a flopper?
I mean, he's not a flopper. I'll put it to you that way. but at the same time, it's not like he would back down either, right? Like if someone wanted to push him physically, he would push back. He's not going to fight, but he wasn't going to get pushed around either. And then unfortunately, sometimes he would see the red mist and do something really, really stupid and get himself suspended. But still, that it showed that he was not one to be trifled with. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, he was about the action if it came down to it.
Yeah, he was not backing down on it. So
would you put like Foote or any of those guys in the conversation? I mean, he was physical, but I don't think of him more as an instigator. But I was young, so I might have been overlooking some of that.
It's hard because the way Foote played in this era, I would say absolutely. But back then, that was just like what you were. That was defense. Yeah, so it's hard to say. Claude Lemieux for sure. Chat would fit the bill. He would stir it up.
Maybe not the most obvious choices, but would you put like Waugh and Varley in this mix? Like guys who were shit talkers and like you're not going to fight. Well, Waugh, you might have fought him because he was down for it, but guys who would like be stirring stuff up.
Waugh definitely. Like he would be slashing dudes in front of him too, and he wasn't afraid to. And backfired a few times on him, but he'll throw the glove in your face or do whatever it is. So Waugh, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, Waugh is a good shout. Varley, I don't know.
I feel like he had a little bit of smugness to him. Like he'd hold the glove out a little longer, and in certain instances, he was a guy who maybe wasn't verbally or like wasn't slashing you, but might give you the stare down while he's doing the water, for an extra 20, 25 seconds. Like, sure. I don't know. It's also possible that was just like what me and my freshman roommates in college built him up to be. We also joked that it wasn't water and his water bottle was vodka and that was his superpower.
Drunken master. Yeah, let's go.
But I loved him, man. I was a big fan of his energy.
Sneakily Francouz a little bit. Again, I don't know how much he would actually like get involved physically, but he would be willing, man. Like there are more than a few times where he would like skate out to center ice and be like, look, man, let's go. Like if you come out here, I'll go. Like, yeah.
So the anti-Abisher then?
Yeah, the opposite of Abisher.
That's one of my favorite moments of all time. I don't remember who it was, but the other goalie came out and was like, are we doing this? And Abisher just like goes behind the net, starts drinking water, wanted no part of it.
We are absolutely not doing this. Yeah, it's weird that
I almost feel like they've had more coaches that were like Crawford and Waugh and some of those guys.
Coach, yeah. Yeah, that's I didn't really think of coaches either. It's so the antithesis of Bednar for sure. Bednar is not that as a coach at all. You'd have to really something would have to snap for him to say much of anything. But yeah, it's weird. I guess there's kind of guys like that in basketball. You get some guys that would like Patrick Beverley or somebody that kind of gets under people's skin. But I'm trying to think.
Ginobili was like that back in the day, especially he was an incredible talent too, but he was kind of, I think what you were saying with Kadri would maybe embellish a little bit and get some calls the other way. And then he would also then come down the other end and, do a Euro step, throw a dunk down, hit a three. And it was like, not only is he a nuisance, but he's actually like really freaking good. And that's even worse than Patrick Beverley, who's just annoying.
And I can't really think of much of that in baseball.
Not these days. Maybe like back when in the steroid era when like guys were throwing at each other more frequently and stuff like that. Like I think Clemens had a little bit of that in him.
Sure. Okay, so
Nolan
if you're a
Ryan
pitcher,
a little bit too. But it's definitely not the same these days. Like it's all fake these days. It's the bat flip, pound my chest. I'm gonna yell stuff out to the stands about how I'm the man, but it's not like actual interaction between the teams. Yeah.
Right.
Keep on the football side for sure.
Yeah, you would know football better than me. To me, a lot of the football feels more of this and less actual action, which to be fair, if you throw a punch, you get thrown out and suspended forever in football. So it's a little bit harder.
Most of it is performative for sure. I think Akib was one of the few guys who was like willing to fist fight you right then and there, consequences be damned. But he also was fun because he'd give the great quotes after the fact. Like, he's got the same agent as me, so when I see him in Atlanta, I'm going to beat his ass. And it's just like, all right, Akib.
It must be nice to have the gift of gab.
I wish there was more of that. Nowadays, athletes just do the whole, like, what you're supposed to say, be respectful. If every matchup's the same, I don't care about this and that. I'm so even keeled, and I get why they do it, especially in the social media era, because it's just going to get taken out of context. But I miss the days of like Bradley Van Pelt, my CSU hero, like beating the Buffs and then going up after the fact and being like, that was the sorriest number 6 team I've ever seen. Like, give me that. Give me the authentic hate.
We talked about this on the show a lot, but like, if the NHL wants to print money, just give me a live feed of mics on the ice. Let me hear what the players are actually saying to each other on the ice.
Could you imagine?
Like, sure, you got to put it on HBO or whatever because it's R-rated. Fine. Like, I want that so badly. It would make... I think it would genuinely help the conversation that we're having here. When you hear two dudes jawing at each other on the ice, it's going to elevate that rivalry in people's minds instead of this manufactured, everyone in the NHL is a good guy, but they hate each other that they're trying to do now.
The Kachucks do that, as DJ says in the Toyota chat. That's true. They kind of have some of that to them. Where
Matthew does it all right. Brady's not as good at it.
Well, it's tough it's not everybody's good on the mic, man. Sometimes you gotta be a good character based on what you do in the ring. You're not the Rock out there.
Yeah, well, we can't all be Landy telling people to go back on waivers. He's got a little bit of that in him, so at least the Avs have someone on the mic out there. Yeah, I don't know.
You want the rawness, though. We don't want, like, that's what I mean. We
Yeah,
don't want the
sure.
goody two-shoes, everybody's so respectful, oh, everybody's a great. Like, yes, the level of respect is good. I'm not saying it all has to just be slop and trash all the time, but, like, when two teams genuinely hate each other, or when somebody feels disrespected, or the moment feels greater than just some typical Tuesday night matchup because of whatever circumstance, I lean into it, man. Give us that genuineness, and let us feel the passion, because I think that's what, like, makes sports so thrilling, right? Is, yes, winning, the quality of play, the incredible feats of athleticism, but, like, what really makes it so thrilling at its core is just the passion of play and how much it means to these guys. And when you hear them yapping, and when you hear the trash talk after a big goal or something like that, it takes you into the moment so much more than just watching it on TV or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. You start to see those type of things in other sports. I know I'm bringing UFC up for the second time on this show, but if you watch a UFC event, they'll go to the corners in between rounds and you hear everything the corner guy is saying to their fighter. And those little extra bits of access are how you better build a story, even if it's not a rivalry, but you're building a conversation. Like, imagine if they had Landy mic'd up, and maybe there's supposedly another episode of that documentary that we interviewed him about coming, that maybe they'll have something like this. But just to play that, if you played that in game, start of the third period, and you have a clip reel of Landy going back to the bench and telling coach, yeah, I'm good, give me more ice time, let's go. Stuff like that are the little details in storytelling that I feel like the NHL has struggled to deliver on at times. They have the big picture stuff, but they miss the little details.
I'm sure there are business restraints and reasons they don't want some of this publicized, but
course.
I don't know. I don't think it would tarnish the brand of the NHL or anything. Like, I don't think anybody's ignorant to what's happening on that ice, or the types of things that are being said. Like, yeah, maybe you don't want little Joey, 8-year-old Joey to hear it, but, like, that's also on the parents, like, again, we can put it on a HBO or whatever. Like, you're going to hear some bad words, especially if you're around the sport of hockey.
I mean, look, I played baseball growing up as a kid. The stuff we said at 12 years old on a baseball diamond is they're not saying anything worse than that. I'll tell you that much.
The things my coaches said to me these days are things you would not heard. You would not. I don't think they would be employable these days. We'll just phrase it that way.
It's a different time. We're old enough that we can say it was a different time now. Making myself
this is completely random and has absolutely nothing to do with what we've been talking about, but I was, right before we started the show, didn't you guys have Ken Klee on the show one time?
We did, yeah.
I found this. I got this autograph of Ken Klee here to Justin. Gave that to me when I was like 10 years old. I ran into him at the Weaver Hollow pool in Littleton, Colorado. Ken Klee, though, cool guy.
Yeah, let's go. That is maybe the most random and Avalanche signature you could have pulled out in that moment, and never would have guessed. My mom
used to take care of his kids at the daycare really? At Club USA or some Sakic's kids too. One of these days I'll have to try and get her to give some of the details of all that. But apparently Ken Klee, very cool guy, and based on how he was that day, I believe it. And I remember the interview being good too.
Yeah, he's a coach now, so he must
Makes
be doing
sense.
something.
It was a long time ago. We're old, so he's old.
If we're old, he's really old. Yeah, him and Big E. All right. I guess that more or less wraps up the Fun Friday show. I think we can all agree that the Red Wings Avs rivalry is dead, but was the best one of all time.
I think I might have to watch the 30 for 30 on that after this now. I've got a little bit of work I got to get done this afternoon, but I've been in that mindset with sports coming up. I'm watching all the sports content to get into it. I'm rewatching Last Chance U on Netflix. I'm going to watch Miracle right before the regular season starts for the Avalanche. Got to get myself in that mind frame.
I need the new Last Chance U season. Where's it at? Give it to me.
I need it so bad. I love that. And that's it's so great because of exactly what we just talked about. All the like raw stuff you get to see that you don't normally get to be a part of.
Yep. We are headed into overtime here, so join us online at DNVR.com. I would actually like a junior A last chance NHL.
That's what I mean.
It would be so sick.
Something like in rural Canada or something like that, where you get to see like some of these towns where it really matters and the passion and everything. Like, I don't know, it feels like they're dropping the ball there on that. Like Leonard Kenny and all that kind of stuff's popular. Like lean into that, but real life, like not the corny bits.
I'm all the way. All right, copyright this. We got to pitch this to some studio. We'll be rich.
Netflix, please give us like $1 million to make an awesome hockey series that will help grow the NHL.
Bus around Western Canada for 3 months.
If the show stops all of a sudden and we start posting pictures up in rural Canada, the chat will know what happened.
All right. We are gonna wrap this one up here. Shout out the chat. Y'all were popping today. Steve Ott, by the way, part of the Eric Johnson trade tree. That video is coming out this weekend. Be sure to check it out when it does get posted. A fun little series we're doing. That's all I got though. JMike, thank you for hopping on. I know you're getting busy with football, but we gotta keep you on here regularly to keep me honest a little bit. But that's all we got. We appreciate y'all. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We are off for the weekend, and we will see you Monday.
We all silly like the mayor.